Greetings, my fellow free philosophical thinkers. Thank you for tuning to LL3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful realms of planet Earth. Today's date is Monday, April 6, 2026. Is episode 1956. Understanding why the Bondi DOJ defended most federal gun laws. Before I proceed, you can follow me on multiple social media sites and podcast channels. Just type in Looky Luck number 3, Looky Luck Roman number 3 with 3 eyes, or the Looky Luck Roman number 3 podcast. In addition, if you have any questions, comments, recommendations, and all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use decorum. Hit me via email to ll3.podcast@proton.me if you want to donate. Go to paypal.me or cash.app/Looky Luck number 3. Oh, yes. So, what else can we say right now? I'm not here to repeat myself and all that good stuff. So, what we're seeing right now, observing, is nothing new under the sun. And everyone wants to point the finger. Now they will look for their next Lakin Knight or Jacobin to be the Lord and Savior. All this hype and hoopla called politics. Well, what can we say, right? Remember, folks, in these United States and the world, we have natural rights, not privileges. Those goofballs don't want you to know that, but I do. Okay, well, I'm not going to be ranting on this before reading this article, so I'm going to do it right now as we speak. And this one came from, I think it's called news2a.com, News Second 2A, New Second Amendment it's called. And the article is entitled, Understanding Why the Bondi DOJ Defended Most Federal Gun Laws and Why Future Attorneys General are likely to do the same. This is written by Costas Moros. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. Costas Moros. Came out today. As I read here, with Pam Bondi's time as Attorney General coming to an end, I received some criticism for seeing her tenure as generally very positive for the Second Amendment. In fact, I have said that by overseeing the creation of the Second Amendment section of the Civil Rights Division and actively filed lawsuits to defeat things like assault weapons laws and lengthy carry permits wait times, she has overseen the most pro-Second Amendment Department of Justice since Reconstruction. Bondi's DOJ is also likely the reason the Supreme Court granted certiorari in the Wolford case, despite its preliminary injunction posture, and her department is also now implementing what will be the largest rights restoration process for the Second Amendment in U.S. history. By objective measures of action taken, Bondi's DOJ have been most favorable to the Second Amendment in the modern era. Perhaps you can complain that the bar is too low because prior administrations were also too hostile to the Second Amendment. And Bondi's DOJ merely did the bare minimum. Fair enough. But that does not change that no prior administration has done even that much. None of this to say I agree with every position the DOJ has taken since President Trump returned to office. I work for the Second Amendment Foundation after all, and we have many active cases ongoing against the federal government. We think the NFA's registration scheme is unconstitutional and have multiple cases concerning the issue alone. The DOJ has also frustratingly sought to narrow relief in some of our cases, like attempting to limit court injunctions to only those SAF members who had become members by the time the lawsuit in question was first filed. Thus, while many great strides have been made by the DOJ recently in favor of the Second Amendment, it is also true that they continue to generally defend federal gun laws. When other Second Amendment activists and organizations are so critical of Pam Bondi's time as Attorney General, that is basically the central complaint. Whatever good that might be doing is undermined by their ongoing defense of federal gun laws. Thanks to that, the news of Bondi's departure was met with celebration in the gun rights sphere. Many, myself included, are now rallying behind Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon, currently the head of the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ, to become Bondi's successor. I have no insight into who will ultimately get the job, but I hope it will be AAG Dillon or someone with similar conviction and a proven track record. However, regardless of who our next Attorney General is, if your expectation is that they will refuse to enforce the gun laws as we as Second Amendment activists consider unconstitutional, then you will almost certainly be disappointed. Remember, folks, when it comes to government, don't get your hopes too high and never trust them, regardless who's in there. Remember, if you vote for these individuals, they will bring in their appointed people. It's not saying you trust them, but you honor your oath of office, including his appointees. Okay, so be fair on that. I will be honest. The reason is simple. With only rare exceptions, the DOJ will generally always defend federal laws because the Attorney General, as the head of the DOJ, has a duty to defend the constitutionality of federal statutes when they are challenged in court. This stems from the executive branch's responsibility to take care that the laws be faithfully executed under Article 2 of the Constitution. It is not the DOJ's job to second-guess the constitutionality of laws duly enacted by Congress and signed by the President. This is why, for example, the Biden-era DOJ defended the PLCAA in federal court, even though the Biden administration despised that law and would have loved to see it repealed or struck down as an article from the trace covered. The problem with Biden's disdain for gun liability protections, aside from the fact that he overstated the immunity the firearms industry receives, is that his administration is going out of his way to defend them. Sitting in the front row at the State of the Union was Attorney General Merrick Garland, the head of the Department of Justice. And I am never been a full-grown man. Continue on. Our obligation to the Justice Department is to defend the constitutionality of statutes that we can reasonably argue are constitutional, Garland said at the House Judiciary Committee oversight hearing in October. Democratic Representative Ted Deutsch, who represents Parkland, Florida, where families are suing over the 2018 shooting at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, had just asked him about the PLCAA. That's the position the Justice Department takes. Wherever we like the statute or not, we defend the constitutionality of Congress's work. That bolded portion is key. Yeah, I'm not even love Merrick Garland, but I can't argue with him on that, right? That bolded portion is key. The DOJ's long-running practice is that so long as there is a non-frivolous argument to support a law's constitutionality, they will defend it, even if they think they might lose in court. In 1980, then Attorney General Benjamin Civiletti responded to questions from the Senate on this very point, explaining that if executive or officers were to adopt a policy of ignoring or attacking acts of Congress whenever they believe them to be in conflict with the provisions of the Constitution, their conduct in office could jeopardize the equilibrium established within our constitutional system. But he was careful to add that there is a line where the law simply becomes indefensible. If Congress were to enact a law requiring, for example, that the Attorney General arrest and imprison all members of the opposition party without trial, the Attorney General could lawfully decline to enforce such a law. And he could lawfully decline to defend it in court. Indeed, he would be untrue to his office if he were to do otherwise. This is not because he has the authority to deny the validity of acts of Congress, it is because everything in our constitutional jurisprudence inescapably establishes a neither he nor any other executive officer can be given authority to enforce such a law. In the Second Amendment sphere, we have seen the Bondi DOJ make some progress in situations where it felt it had no serious ground to enforce or defend particular federal gun laws, for example. The Office of Legal Counsel recently examined the ban on mailing handguns through the U.S. Postal Service, a law which dates back to 1927. It concluded that the law's purpose and burden find no analog in the nation's history and tradition of firearms regulation. The statute violates the Second Amendment insofar as its burden, the right of law-abiding citizens to ship and receive arms in common use for lawful purposes. Based on that, they will no longer enforce that law, though the memorandum left unclear if they will defend it in court. To be sure, it is possible that a different attorney general could take a much more expansive view on what is and not a reasonable argument and thereby conclude that more federal gun laws are indispensable than Bondi did. But even that is hardly a silver bullet to getting major federal gun laws overturned. In that circumstance, we would likely see courts allow attorneys for Congress members to defend the challenged laws, as occurred when the Obama administration refused to defend the Defense of Marriage Act. There, the Bipartisan Legal Advisory Group, or BLAG, B-L-A-G, of the House of Representatives voted to intervene in the litigation to defend Section 3's constitutionality. The district court permitted the intervention. Moreover, there are sometimes good reasons to want the DOJ to defend the law as opposed to congressional lawyers or others. For example, in U.S. versus Peterson, while the Bondi DOJ defended the NFA as to suppressors, it did at least concede that suppressors enjoy some degree of the Second Amendment protection, regardless of whether the suppressors themselves constitute arms. Restrictions on suppressors burden on the right to keep and bear arms, and so must be closely scrutinized to ensure compliance with the Second Amendment. This sort of concession may prove very helpful to those challenging state-level total bans on suppressors. That's why you use your state constitutions, folks. And trust me, when you start reading that, you can laugh at these legislation and their laws that support banning on certain tools, equipment. And trust me, you appreciate that. And some expect when there is no frivolous argument to be made in defense of a law, you can usually count on the Department of Justice to defend federal laws. There may be some differences between Pam Bondi and her eventual successor on the margin in terms of what they consider to be a frivolous argument and when the defense of the federal law is reasonable. But if you go in expecting that the next Attorney General will declare wide swaths of federal gun laws indefensible in court, you will very likely to be disappointed. And I have to give him props for that, because in good faith, you always have to see things a lot bigger than what it is. And actually, Costas Moros is a director of legal research and education for the Second Amendment Foundation. Has been a practicing attorney in California since 2015 and is a member of several federal circuit courts, as well as the Supreme Court bar. Pretty cool. So definitely check him out. It is a good article, I can say. And you gotta look at things on a legality basis. And one thing I like about this article, because it talks about the checks and balances. You know me, I'm not even a lovey-dovey with government, including Merrick Garland. However, that quote he made, fair enough, so you gotta always take the good from the bad, but always remain vigilant. And remember, any commandeering doctrine does exist, including the 10th Amendment. So, that's why I always say focus on your state and local governments, think and act locally. And one thing I can say, it is very keen to this measure or article, It's a little history lesson. Everything's going to be always expect obstacles. Why? It's government. And who runs it? Human beings. And I'm critical of Pam Bondi, even when she supported the red flag law when she was Attorney General in Florida. So I'm not too keen with her, but doesn't mean everything she did under the Second Amendment is wrong. So overall, like I said, you can always expect the pros and cons. So that's why I tell people, stay vigilant, keep them on their toes, and never trust the government, including the Attorney General. Well, that will be it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout your social media networks. If you need questions, comments, recommendations, all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use decorum. Hit me via email to ll3.podcast@proton.me. If you want to donate, go to PayPal.me or cash.app/look3. If you want to support News 2A, pretty cool. Check them out. Observe responsibly. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.